Ask anybody who knows how to drift in real life about it, and they will tell you that it is not easy. You have to have a car that's tuned in, got to make sure the build's right, the tyres are right, but we're in the real world. Games are not the real world, and this is where I want to talk today about the game with the perfect, and I mean perfect, drifting mechanics. But before I do, we need to rewind, look at the granddaddy of drifting games, and that is the one, the only, Ridge Racer. From 1994, made by Namco, it was a cabinet game, actually in the arcades, only to get ported to the PlayStation 1 later down the line. This game really let drifting become a thing in the gaming space. Unlike Gran Turismo and other racing games at the time, they were all focused on grippy racing, while Ridge Racer said, nah, we ain't having that. And they made drifting the sole focus to get around harsh turns, and it is, while a bit dated, one of the most perfect drifting systems, or at least the start of drifting in arcade games. So why do I mention that? Well, that's because it's the forerunner to what I'm about to talk about in a way. Because the game I'm about to talk about is a game that came out in 1984 originally, or at least the first one. I'm talking about Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. So, Outrun. This release was totally different from the original. The original game was a nice solid racing game that just let you drive until the timer ran out, as per most arcade games back in the 80s did. What makes Coast to Coast so brilliant is the way it creates its physics. Unlike other arcade games, it focused on drifting the same way Ridge Racer did in '94. And with that said, it perfected the system of drifting. I know usually when I discuss a game, I would talk about the progression and the car list and so on first. But with this, I really just have to stipulate the fact that the handling and just the physics model is so perfect. You can easily transfer your drift from one turn to another, just with a tap of the brake, steering right, and once you're locked into a drift, you just have to keep turning that little bit and get that angle right. And there is no other game that does a mechanic as well as this. But given that we are talking about a game that's a full retail release and not the arcade machine version, I will need to say really about what you do get with the package. For a start, Outrun has multiple mods. You've got Outrun, as the name says, which is just keep driving, hope the time limit doesn't run out, and just drive as far as you can until you hit the end stage. Nice and simple. The next mode is Heart Attack, where you impress your girlfriend by doing different tasks, such as avoiding UFOs, hitting soccer balls and beach balls, and usually a lot of drifting. Which, yes, this game lets you have a girlfriend, 10 out of 10, lonely drivers unite. So what's the other mods? Well, you've got normal races, which I'll admit are quite bland in this game. Just go play Outrun mode if you want to have the experience. And there's also time trials, the perfect mode for this game. Its mechanics are so well built that having a time trial mode where you keep running the same stage over and over to perfect the handling model and each stage really does give the game longevity. Speaking of longevity, the progression system. I know it sounds crazy, but there is a progression system. Unless you pick the normal Outrun mod which emulates the arcade setup, you do have to earn things. And the way you do that is each event you complete, you end up getting points to buy new cars, buy new soundtrack, which speaking of, that's what you're hearing right now. There's also even the paint colours for the cars. And to actually incentivise playing single player and progressing, there is actually special Outrun versions of cars which are modified compared to the stock versions of all the cars. Speaking of the cars too, every single vehicle in this game that you can drive is a Ferrari. So if you are a fan of the Italian brand that wasn't made by a guy who started building tractors, this game is perfect for you. Seriously, it has a brilliant roster of Ferraris if you're into that thing. So I'm praising this game like nothing else. And the difficult thing is for me to point out any issues is such a difficult task because there isn't really any true flaws to the game other than it being an arcade game. The issue with it being an arcade game is they had to force a progression system in. There wasn't a natural way to implement one because the game was never designed for that. It was designed to take your quarters and to keep you going, like one more try. Maybe I'll get to the end this time. So this leaves us with me recommending the game or not. And if you are somebody who loves arcade games, used to love paying the pound, the quarter, whatever currency, get this game, play it. You will fall in love easily. But for those who prefer games with more content or just more depth overall, I'd have to say it's a hard pass. This game is one of the best examples of an arcade game being brought into the modern era, and it still stands up now. Even with the graphics, it looks amazing. So, as I said, would I recommend it? Only if you're into arcade games. Otherwise, I'd say just go play something else, you know? There's a lot of games out there, and I'm gonna just go along discussing them when I can. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you on the next one. I'm trying my best to push these out quicker and quicker, but I want to make sure they're still good for you guys. So see y'all in the next one.